I'm the kind of person that I believe that mental health cares, and sometimes you don't talk about this because it's like you care about what the people thinks about if you are good or not. But I think now the young people only have to talk about how they feel and how they want to be, and yeah, I think it's more important than we believe.
Ferran Torres bags the winning goal in the World Cup final, and suddenly this man is moving like he owns the whole football world. Since that moment, Ferran has been everywhere. One day, he's at a Yankees game throwing the first pitch, then he's popping up on CNN, and next thing you know, he's sitting on morning shows that barely even talk about football. He's smiling, cracking jokes in English, and enjoying every second of the spotlight. And that's where things start getting interesting. It almost feels like that one massive World Cup moment has completely changed the conversation around him. From the outside, this media run looks very calculated. His PR team may simply be taking advantage of the attention, but the message coming across is hard to miss. Ferran seems to feel like he deserves way more respect and recognition at Barca. Some fans could even read the deeper message as Ferran believing he's outgrown his current situation at Barca. Obviously, we don't know what conversations are happening behind closed doors, so claiming that's definitely how he feels would be a stretch. But something has clearly boosted his confidence. Maybe the reported PSG interest played a part, or maybe scoring on football's biggest stage made him see his own status differently. Either way, the timing is wild. Score the biggest goal imaginable, hit the American media circuit, and suddenly your name feels bigger than it did before. And for casual fans who mostly remember that World Cup final, it's easy to understand why Ferran Torres might now look like an absolute superstar.
Talk to us about Ferran Torres and his contribution this evening.
Not this evening, not just this. Of course, this evening was so important, but not just this evening. It's his first season in England, and his numbers are exceptional in terms of goals. Exceptional.
Imagine you're an American fan who barely watches football, and the World Cup final was the one match you caught in 4 years. After seeing Ferran Torres score that winner, you'd probably walk away thinking this dude is the GOAT. You might even start talking like he's above Messi. But anyone who's actually followed Ferran's career has a much clearer picture of what he brings to the table. People know Ferran's level, and Spain basically showed us his ideal role during that tournament. He's dangerous as a super sub and can be a really useful rotation player when the situation fits him. One huge winning goal doesn't suddenly rewrite the entire story. De La Fuente regularly brought him into games from the bench, and some of Ferran's biggest moments happened exactly that way. His assist for Mikel Merino against Portugal and his goal against Argentina both came after he entered as a substitute. And here's the part that makes this whole situation spicy. Barca were already using Ferran in a similar role. So this isn't really about arguing whether Ferran Torres is good or bad. The bigger controversy is this idea that Barca supposedly don't value him enough. Based on the opportunities they've given him, that's a pretty tough argument to sell. There's even a Drake line from Tuscan Leather that fits the debate perfectly. As Drake says, bench players talking like starters, I hate it. And with everything being said around Ferran's role right now, you can see exactly why that lyric has entered the conversation. And wow, that Drake line suddenly feels way too accurate when you look at the Ferran Torres situation. The bigger issue is that Ferran hasn't consistently shown he can be Barca's main guy. And before people rewrite history, there's an important difference here. Most of the heat aimed at Ferran didn't actually come from Barcelona itself. We've seen Barca get into messy situations with players before. There have been public contract battles, transfer pressure, and plenty of uncomfortable headlines surrounding certain names. Frankie de Jong's situation is one obvious example of how tense things can become when the club and a player aren't completely on the same page. But with Ferran, we haven't really seen that same public push from the club. Most of the criticism came from somewhere else. Fans were cooking him online, sections of the stadium weren't always happy, and the Spanish media definitely had plenty to say about his performances. But that's different from claiming Barca themselves were disrespecting him.
I have contract at Barcelona, but in football you never know. I'm just waiting to make the right decision.
His teammates weren't publicly tearing him down, and his manager continued giving him opportunities. If anything, Ferran's Barcelona story points in the opposite direction. Even when his form wasn't perfect and supporters were questioning him, the club continued keeping him involved and giving him chances to prove what he could do. Barcelona were betting big on Ferran Torres before the guy had even played his first match for them. Just look at the situation when they signed him. The club were dealing with serious financial problems, money was tight, and every major transfer carried extra pressure. Yet Barca still decided to spend around 55 million euros on Ferran. That's not exactly the move you make for somebody you don't believe in. Think about how crazy that timing was. Barca had registration headaches, financial restrictions, and nowhere near the spending freedom they'd enjoyed in the past. They had to be careful with their cash, and Ferran was still the player they chose to invest in. So the idea that the club never valued him becomes harder to understand. Clearly, they believed he could become an important piece of the team, and the trust didn't stop once the transfer was completed. Ferran was quickly given serious minutes and opportunities in the starting 11. Early on, there was real excitement about what he could become at Barcelona. One of the biggest moments came against Real Madrid at the Bernabeu, when Barca smashed their rivals 4-0 and Ferran delivered an impressive performance. Back then, the hype around the Shark was very different. He arrived from Manchester City while still young, with plenty of room to develop, and many supporters genuinely believed Barca had landed a future star. Even those David Villa comparisons didn't sound completely wild at the time. People seriously thought Ferran could grow into something special. Xavi trusted Ferran Torres from day one, and that's what makes this whole underappreciated narrative so strange. Ferran didn't suddenly lose his place because the club decided they were done with him. His role started shrinking when his performances dropped. Ferran himself later described that difficult period as a bottomless pit.
Of course, you love Barcelona and you have the contract with them. What do they need to do to keep you?
Bueno, mostrare que me quieren.
And you can understand why when you look at how quickly the competition around him changed. During his first season, Ferran was basically one of Barca's biggest attacking additions. The options weren't exactly stacked either, with players like Aubameyang and Braithwaite also in the mix. But the following season changed everything. Barcelona pulled their famous financial levers, brought in Robert Lewandowski and Rafinha, while Ousmane Dembele was still there competing for minutes. Suddenly, Ferran wasn't walking into that attack anymore. That's where he had to fight for his spot, and this is the key point. Xavi didn't freeze him out. He continued rotating Ferran and giving him minutes. But Ferran wasn't consistently doing enough with those chances to jump ahead of players like Dembele or Lewandowski. And come on, Lewandowski arrived at Barca and immediately won the Pichichi. Taking that starting position was never going to be easy. Meanwhile, Ferran's own numbers and finishing started slipping. Chances were coming, but too many weren't ending in goals, and his scoring rhythm dried up badly. More appearances started coming from the bench, and that's when some supporters became frustrated. They'd watch him get another opportunity, only to see a promising chance go begging. So, once again, the evidence doesn't really point toward Xavi simply disrespecting Ferran. Even during his rough spell, the manager kept bringing him into matches and giving him opportunities to turn things around. Most of that frustration was coming from the supporters and the media, especially because Ferran had become so inconsistent in front of goal. Missed chances kept piling up, expectations were high, and the pressure around him was getting heavier. This eventually became one of the hardest periods of his Barcelona career, and this part deserves to be treated seriously. Ferran has spoken publicly about struggling with his mental health during that difficult period, and fighting his way through something like that takes real strength. Whatever you think about the player or his recent comments, bouncing back mentally while playing under the massive spotlight at Barcelona deserves respect. He went through a rough chapter and managed to rebuild his confidence. But there's another important detail people shouldn't ignore. Barcelona continued supporting him.
And talk to the club. Why do you want to go public?
Even while Ferran was struggling for form, the club didn't simply throw him aside. He remained part of the squad, continued receiving opportunities, and eventually worked his way back into a better position. And that's where his comments about feeling undervalued become even more interesting. From the outside, there are multiple possibilities. Maybe there wasn't enough serious transfer interest while his performances were down, or maybe interest existed and Barca simply preferred to keep him. We don't know exactly what happened behind closed doors. So pretending either scenario is confirmed wouldn't be fair. What we can actually judge is what happened publicly. Ferran stayed at Barcelona through that difficult stretch, kept receiving chances, and was given the opportunity to fight his way back into the team. Either way you look at it, Barca's decision to stick with Ferran Torres says something. If there genuinely wasn't much interest from other clubs, Barcelona could have tried to cut their losses and move him on. Instead, they kept him around and continued giving him a path back into the team. And if clubs actually were interested, but Barca refused to sell, that makes the argument even stronger. It would suggest the club still believed Ferran had something valuable to offer, even while his form was struggling. And remember, this guy eventually reached 100 appearances for Barcelona. You don't casually rack up that many games at a club with Barca's expectations if every manager thinks you bring nothing to the table. Then Hansi Flick arrived, and suddenly Ferran's story started flipping again. Under Flick, we saw a serious comeback.
Are you open to changing? PSG, maybe?
You never know, because in football everything can change in 1 minute, so I have to be ready for everything.
Ferran hit a hat-trick against Real Betis and delivered important moments against Borussia Dortmund in the Champions League. Now, amazing might deserve quotation marks, because even when he scored, there were still chances where you were sitting there thinking, how did that not go in? That's basically been the Ferran Torres experience. Great movement, dangerous positions, but sometimes leaving goals on the table. Then came his Copa del Rey run, and Flick's trust became even harder to ignore. He was willing to start Ferran through the middle ahead of Lewandowski in certain situations. That's not something a manager does with a player he doesn't rate. And once Ferran started producing again, even reports of interest from PSG entered the conversation. Flick helped rebuild his role, confidence, and public perception. Before that turnaround, critics often compared Ferran to Darwin Núñez because of one frustrating similarity. Both could find dangerous spaces, create opportunities, and then leave fans wondering how the finish didn't match the movement. Now, that old reputation hasn't completely vanished, because Ferran still has those games where huge chances somehow go begging, but the difference is that he's become much easier to trust in a specific role. Maybe he's not the automatic superstar starter, but as a rotation player or someone coming off the bench to change a match, he can be seriously useful. And Flick seemed to understand that perfectly. Instead of trying to turn Ferran into another Rafinha or Lewandowski, he focused on what Ferran actually does well: use his movement, let him attack tired defenders, and bring his energy when the game starts opening up. In that role, Ferran became a dangerous impact option and played his part in Barcelona's Copa del Rey success. Some supporters might even say his contribution against Real Madrid in the final alone made that massive transfer fee feel a whole lot better. That's why the idea of Barca not appreciating him sounds strange to critics. What exactly should the club have done differently? Make him the guaranteed number 9 regardless of form or competition? Because that's where expectations have to meet reality. At a club with Barcelona's ambitions, being the main striker means competing at an elite level every single week. Ferran can absolutely be valuable without automatically being the face of the entire attack. If his priority is becoming the undisputed main man, there are other paths. Players sometimes leave giant clubs, join teams where there's less competition, get more minutes, and suddenly become one of the biggest names in that squad. That's a completely respectable career choice. But moving somewhere else doesn't automatically guarantee Ferran the spotlight either. Even if a club like PSG were seriously interested, he'd still have to battle other top-level attackers for minutes. At this level, nobody just hands you the keys because you want a bigger role. Ferran went through an absolutely brutal stretch of form, yet Barcelona never completely stopped believing in him. His teammates kept backing him, kept looking for him in attacking positions, and kept trying to help him find his confidence again. Just look at the reaction when he delivered in the Copa del Rey. The celebrations around Ferran said plenty about how the squad appeared to feel about him. His teammates rushed over, hugged him, and celebrated like that moment meant something bigger than just another goal. You could see how much emotion was there. They knew the pressure Ferran had been carrying and how difficult his journey had been. That's why the claim of feeling underappreciated leaves people asking one obvious question. Where exactly was that lack of appreciation coming from? Not being an automatic starter doesn't mean a player isn't valued. This is Barcelona we're talking about, where competition for places is always going to be ruthless. And Ferran wasn't just sitting around doing nothing either. He played an important role in major matches and contributed to the team's success under Hansi Flick. Look at that Atletico Madrid semi-final. Flick made the bold call to use Ferran instead of Lewandowski, a decision that surprised plenty of people. The manager wanted Ferran's movement and athleticism up front, trusted him in a massive moment, and Ferran answered by scoring the winning goal. That's serious faith from a manager, and Dortmund gave us another example. When Ferran found the net, Flick was punching the air while players on the bench exploded in celebration. Those reactions don't look like a squad treating someone as an outsider. Whatever Ferran personally felt behind the scenes, publicly there were plenty of moments showing teammates and coaches celebrating his success and trusting him when the pressure was high. Now, has Ferran been disrespected before? Absolutely. Critics like me have cooked him, fans in the comments have joked about him, and misses like that chance against Chelsea definitely didn't help his case. And when you're saying you deserve a bigger role, those moments are always going to come back into the conversation. That's football at the highest level. But there's a massive difference between criticism from fans and disrespect from Barcelona. His teammates kept supporting him. His managers kept trusting him. And the club continued giving him opportunities even when his form was all over the place. That's why this whole media tour and the suggestion that he hasn't been appreciated at Barca feels so strange, because Barcelona gave Ferran chance after chance. He got minutes in huge Champions League nights, Copa del Rey matches, and important La Liga games, even during periods when his finishing was painfully inconsistent. The door never completely closed on him. Instead of pushing him aside, Barca kept giving him opportunities to fight for his place. And that's really the point of this entire video. This isn't about pretending Ferran Torres is a terrible footballer, because he isn't. He does plenty of things really well. His work rate is strong, his movement can cause serious problems, and his ability to find dangerous positions is one of his biggest weapons. On his day, Ferran can absolutely change a game. And the problem is consistency. His finishing can still let him down, and some of his decisions in the final third leave you wondering what he was thinking. Those weaknesses make it difficult to see him becoming the undisputed attacking superstar at an elite club competing for every major trophy. Even Spain found a role that played directly into his strengths. Bring him into the game with fresh legs, let him attack spaces, rotate him when necessary, and suddenly Ferran can become a serious weapon. Being an elite rotational player isn't disrespectful. At a club like Barcelona, that's still an incredibly valuable role. And that's why I've never been desperate to see Barca sell Ferran. I've always understood what he can bring to this team. But these recent comments and this whole media run, that's where I think he's losing people. From the outside, Barcelona have shown him plenty of patience and trust, so acting like the club never truly valued him is a difficult argument to defend. But now, I want to hear what you think. Is Ferran Torres genuinely underappreciated at Barcelona, or is he expecting a role that his performances haven't consistently earned? Drop your take in the comments, because I know this one is going to divide people. And if you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe for more football stories like this, and share it with someone who always has something to say about Barca. Then check out the next video on screen right now.